Father James Gross joining you, along with my wingman here, Father Jason Leffer, priest from the Diocese of Fargo. We're coming to you from the Grand Cities, and we have a brother priest with us from our diocese, Father Jeff Eppler. Welcome back to Real Presence Live.
Howdy. Good to be back.
It's great to hear from you, Father. So could you just remind us where you are currently serving?
I am up in Grafton at St. John the Evangelist Parish here. Awesome place to be.
Very good. Yes, you've got about how many hundred households there in your community?
I think I've got about 550 on the book, but there's a lot that aren't on the book that should be. You know
exactly. Right. Yep. Just to remind us, you have only relatively recently been ministering in our diocese. Can you just tell us how you first came to North Dakota and a little bit about that journey?
Okay, well, only recently have I actually become part of the diocese, but I've been in the diocese for quite a while. So I belonged to a religious order for 20 years, Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity, SOLT for short. And they sent me up to Belcourt, on the reservation there. And then I went back there again with a brother. And then I went back there again as a priest in 2005. And then I went down to Dunseith. And so I was in Dunseith for 5 years. And then Belize, they sent me to Belize, Central America. And then a year and a half later, sent me back up to Belcourt as pastor of St. Anne's there. And I was Belcourt there for about 6 years. And then within the year after that, I ended up joining the Diocese of Fargo. So I've been in the Diocese of Fargo for 3 years now, officially. But I've been in the diocese for quite a while.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you with us here. One of the things that I was reminded of, at least locally, is that there was some press about some decisions that you made when the pandemic first began and prior to when public masses could be reinstated in the diocese, and bringing the Eucharist physically to people around your community. So can you remind us of what you decided to do up there in Grafton?
What we did was every Sunday when we had the shutdown, basically, of the masses publicly, every Sunday, me and my police chief, Tony Duma, we would drive around in his Ford pickup truck, and I'd carry the Blessed Sacrament in the monstrance, and we would hit every single street in Grafton and in Oakwood, because Oakwood's our mission parish. And it would take up about 3.5 hours. Every Sunday we'd do this. And so we'd have parishioners, they know we're coming, and they would come out, and many of them actually kneel on the grass, on the front step, on the sidewalks as the Lord was passing by. So they came out to welcome the Lord and asking Jesus to bless every single person in Grafton. So that's why we went to every single street. And since we were going to do that, and we did that, and so we'd have public Mass again. And so when we had public Mass, we switched to just only doing it the first Sunday of the month. So we still do it. Now, the first Easter of that whole lockdown, what we did was we had a vehicle Eucharistic procession that Easter Sunday morning, since none of the churches in town, Protestant or us, were having any public services. After I offered the Mass, the Easter morning Mass, we got in the truck and we had 1.5 miles of cars here in Grafton following the Blessed Sacrament. And so myself and my deacon, we sat in the back in the bed, and he incensed while I held up Jesus the whole time, and we drove around for about 20 minutes all throughout Grafton with 1.5 miles of cars. And we had Lutherans joining us in. We had all kinds of people joining us in, celebrating Easter morning with the resurrected Lord and the Eucharist. So, yeah.
Now, another thing I happen to know about you, Father, is you tend to have some artistic gifts and talents that you express through sculpture and different things, but there is a particular expression that you've done to bring devotion to the Blessed Sacrament and Eucharist maybe to children or teenagers or even adults through something called comics. What's that all about?
Well, when I was in seminary, one of my teachers, the one who was actually teaching us some sacraments, particularly Eucharist, gave us options of how to do a report. And so I'm like, So I decided to actually do a comic book because my background is art and illustration. I went to college for all that. So I decided to actually create a Eucharistic adoration comic book. And so I went through a bunch of the different documents of the church. I pulled out like direct quotes that Jesus would actually be saying in this about himself in the Eucharist. in what he does through Eucharistic adoration and all that's present in the common book, and then illustrating it and basically creating a common book. And so I did that in seminary and as my project, and then Lord providentially had it printed. I was in the Philippines at the time in seminary. Had about, 30,000 of them printed there. One of the bishops there, a retired bishop, loved it, and so he ended up getting it printed. It was disseminated there, and then it's been disseminated in various parts here in the state. And I whenever I go to a parish to talk on the Eucharist, I'll bring a bunch of those and hand them out. But I found it's beneficial.
Well, Father Eppler, gosh, you're describing that. I'm being very inspired, but also getting in touch with that. That's quite a sacrificial thing that you've undertaken. I mean, it takes a lot of time and commitment to do that, and that is extremely commendable. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, a priest doesn't just do this. I mean, this has to be coming from a place of love, of devotion, of relationship to the Eucharist. Can you let us in a little bit on what is your relationship with Jesus and the Eucharist like?
Well, the Eucharist is Jesus, so he's the only Savior of the world, and the joy of having him physically present, that was really the catalyst of bringing me into the Catholic Church. I mean, I grew up Methodist, and the Eucharist was pivotal, actually, in bringing me into the faith, and actually pivotal in my vocation as a priest, actually. So I spend time every week in Eucharistic adoration. The Mass is one of the great joys of my day. I have to say Mass and confessions are probably my two greatest joys, actually. But Mass is knowing that the Lord is physically present here for me and for all his people, that he's there because he loves and he remains because he loves. I mean, that's the core of my Catholic and just personal identity is him.